welcome to Conscious Lifestyles magazine. We're here at the Conscious Life Expo, and we are so delighted to have with us a former senator from Alaska, Senator Mike Gravel, and he was on our 9/11 panel and last night with a formidable panelists, and I was so delighted to hear that you were coming to the Expo to talk about this so important topic. So tell me a little bit about how you ended up stepping forward in the 9/11.
Well, one of the panelists last night was Richard Gage, who's the head organizer of architects and engineers. Mm-hmm. And they started from scratch, and now there's probably about 1,400 architects and engineers that question what the government report had said about how what happened on 9/11 in New York City at the Twin Towers. They question it with good reason, because the scientific argument put forth by the government do not hold water. Mm-hmm. When 9/11 occurred, I was living, a mile away from the Pentagon. So I really was witnessed the event. But what really bothered me was what this event would cause, which would be to damage the American psyche, and that's exactly what has happened. Mm-hmm. Now, this was used for nefarious purposes, because not only is it suspicious about the lead up to 9/11, the events of 9/11, but the aftermath, which caused 3 wars. 1, Afghanistan, 2, Iraq, and diabolically, the war on terror, which is not a war, but what it does, it gives the economic underpinning for spending all of these monies on the military industrial complex and also Homeland Security, which is all by and large a boondoggle. Not all of it. I'm not advocating that we shouldn't have a defense, because we're still a bit of a crazy world, but not the resources that we spend on this. We're an empire in decline, and our leadership is whistling through the cemetery. Now, I got involved, very suspicious about it, but then when I ran for president in 07, 08, mm-hmm. I was approached by a group in New York, families and the others, that were trying to get an initiative under New York City law. New York State does not have an initiative process where people can make laws. So they started this process, and I was very supportive of them, because my whole background right now for the last 25 years has been trying to develop direct democracy in the United States and hopefully worldwide, mm-hmm. where the people would be able to make laws directly. That's where the answer is. There's only 2 venues for change. One, the government, wherein the problem lies, and the other, the people. And so you have to go to the people, but the people need procedures to be able to effect this. And so that's the legislation that I was able to write with others, and it's called the National Initiative for Democracy. Now, using that as a basis, I now was trying to help out in New York. Well, they collected the necessary legal amount of signatures, but then it was thrown out by the court. And properly so, because it had a drafting problem. And after that was over, Richard Gage, who had known my involvement in New York, approached me and asked me if I would be the moderator at the press club between the people that question the government's scenario and the people who are for the government scenario. Well, that alerted me, and then from there we went to New York for a panel that weekend, and I came up with the suggestion that what we ought to do is have an initiative to create a new citizens committee. And so that's how I got involved with this, and we're in the process of doing that right now. We don't have the final language of this, what would be a California initiative, mm-hmm. but Tina, we will take that initiative and file it in Washington State, Oregon, Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, Ohio, Florida, Mississippi, Maine, Vermont, Massachusetts. And so we'll have a de facto national initiative, and our hope is to have this on the ballot in all of these states in 2012.
Wow, well that would certainly bring 2012 into a whole new, you know, all the information we're hearing about 2012, and of course, A Conscious Life, we have a lot of positive spins rather than some of the things the media has done. And what you're talking about would usher in a whole new political reality and awareness.
Well, my hope is that by bringing about a new investigative commission of citizens, not the government. I have no faith in the government in this regard. That what we would do is we would get to the bottom of who. We don't know who. We now know what happened, and it's not what the government tells us, but we don't know who. And so an investigation could determine that, a very serious investigation. And so once we do know that, this would be such a traumatic blow to the American psyche that it could counter the supine attitude that the nation's constituency has to the military-industrial complex and corporate control of our culture and our polity. And so that could, in my mind, be so cataclysmic that Americans would just wake up and say, hey, we got to begin questioning authority.
And on that note, so Americans questioning authority, good, I totally there with you. But is there the leadership, are there the people that are serving the country at this point? Now you're a previous senator. Is there anybody there listening that's still there?
Not that I can see, really, because if you just look at Obama, who offered such hope in his candidacy, became president, he's essentially Bush light. You know, he really hasn't changed anything. Oh, a little bit of a Democratic spin on the executive, but not really. And that's the sadness of it, that they are not able to bring about change. And so what they've done is, well, I can give you a couple of instances. Just look at, they're trying to prosecute Bradley Manning. Here's a 22-year-old PFC who had the integrity and the conscience to say, what I'm seeing in my capacity as an intelligence analyst is different from what the leadership in the White House and the generals are saying. And so he blew the whistle on that. And so they're trying to prosecute him. He didn't swear allegiance to the generals and captains and White House. He swore allegiance to the Constitution, to defend it from foreign or inside people. This is what he did, and now he's being prosecuted. And then we take WikiLeaks. My God, this is the greatest blessing that's happened. And of course, I was involved with the Pentagon Papers and Daniel Ellsberg. And so what these people are doing essentially is the same thing. A democracy can only survive and prosper if the people in the democracy are informed as to what their government is doing. When we learned about rendition, it was from a whistleblower within the CIA who was fired. And so that just, the government classifies too much. 80% of what the government classified is ridiculous, not necessary. So we need to be aware, to take responsibility for our lives, and what of course, your association, your group, with this sense of developing an inner consciousness of your life really dovetails with this totally.
Oh, gosh. So we're talking about transparency, which is certainly a topic that we do really bring in more and more here. Authenticity, they kind of go hand in hand there. And self-responsibility.
Totally.
Right. So, you know, years ago I had a magazine that dealt with sovereignty. And And I kind of came in as a new kid on the block with it, so I could be very impartial and just listen to what was saying on both sides. And I was really amazed at a lot of the information that I would have never previously looked at. So now what I'm seeing, though, is kind of business as usual, and this sort of divisiveness between the Democrats and the Republican, but really the same. They're pretty much
the same.
The same.
They really are.
Right.
And the divisiveness is, I want to be in power. It's a power game that they're playing. Whether it's at the presidency, whether it's in the Congress, I want to have power. And with power goes the perks, goes the ability to enrich yourself, goes the selfishness and the greed. That's really all part of that. Now, to counter that, and this is what I think you're onto, when you talk in terms of sovereignty, we human beings are sovereign. We're sovereign over our bodies. We're sovereign over the polity that governs us. Now, the polity that's been developed with the American Constitution, which I want to tell you, American Constitution is not a very democratic document, but with the creation of the Constitution, we enshrined the elites to control our society. The Constitution was drafted by elites. Now, bear in mind that the central power of government is lawmaking, not the presidency, not the judiciary. You make a law and we're supposed to obey that law. Now, if that's properly done, it works very, very well. So now, if we want to address the problems we face as citizens, as sovereigns, all we do right now is give away our sovereignty on election day. So you're really a sovereign exercising your power on the polity. Now, on your own life, that's a whole other area. But on the polity, all you're doing is for 2 seconds when you throw the lever when you vote, you gave your sovereignty away, and then you wait 2, 4, 6 years to see if there's going to be a change, and then you go to the next party. That does not work. And so there's only 2 venues for change: the government, wherein the people, wherein the problem lies, and the other venue is the people. And so the people now must be empowered to make laws so that they can exercise their legislative role as sovereigns, parallel to the role played by representative government in making laws also. So it becomes a win-win. The people would be independent and would have their own agency to permit them to make laws, which is a complicated deliberative process, but not so complicated. The law that I've written with others, the National Initiative for Democracy, is only 5,600 words. And we've got a device to go entirely around the government, and we don't have to ask the government permission to enact this into law.
Wow, okay. So when you hear the GOP's rhetoric on small governments and stuff, you know, I'm hearing you talking about the people being empowered and the people. There's a thing that seems to be going on in America, which is the dumbing down of America, from Hollywood to the foods, to the additives, to chemtrails, if you subscribe to that, to the EMF that we're all dealing with our cell phones and everything. So there's all this going on, and yet people need to be empowered and educated and made aware of the problem. Do you see that as something that's
vital? In fact, I make this distinction. You can educate the people all you want. You can inform them all you want. But if they don't have the power to act upon that information, it goes nowhere. People become cynics. They turn into their own lives and worry about their children, their families, and their jobs. And so they don't have an impact on the policies of the polity, of the government. They don't have an impact. Well, the people take polls, but the operation of representative government does not function that way. First and foremost, in fact, let me do it this way. Let me describe to you what goes on in the mind of an elected official or a visible official or even a corporate official. a person who is visible and has power. The first thing, and now what I'm talking about is human nature. This is not pejorative. The first thing that comes to mind is, how does this affect the decision I'm about to make? How does this affect me? My job? Can I get reelected? Can I stay in power? I got a family to support, or I've got a position. So that's the first thing. The second thing that comes into my mind before I make that decision: how does this affect the people who put the money up to get me here and to keep me here? The third thing that comes into my mind: how does this decision affect my party? Because if my party's in power, I'm in power. So now I'm at the third level, and I haven't even addressed my own ideology or my possible corruption. So generically, representative government, what we have, has the structural inability to deal with the public interest first. Structural inability to do that. And so, if that being the case, which is what I was saying, there's only two venues for change: the government, where the structure is flawed, or the people. And so we have to empower the people to be able to make laws and join in their governance. And this brings about a maturation. The representative government is designed to keep the citizens in civic adolescence. Civic adolescence is what the structure does, because we give our power away, and then we blame them. Hey, George is the one that did it wrong. Bill did it wrong, you know, and blame it all on them. I don't want to pay taxes, you know, but I want everything. That's adolescent. That's just, look at your kids. You'll see that that's adolescent behavior. So now, how do we mature our children to adults? We give them responsibility, more and more responsibility, and they wind up being adults, taking responsibility for their lives, taking responsibility for the society around them and the polity. So now, if we empower the people to be able to make laws, oh, they'll make some mistakes, but they'll learn real quick and take responsibility for their lives. So the greatest benefit of direct democracy is the maturation of the human race.
You're so inspiring. I love it.
We'll get there early.
Yeah. For the whole TSA.
That's right, which is ridiculous. And that whole device is done to keep you fear. Fear is what, are we taping?
On?
Yeah, you're on.
Yeah.
You guys can pick
Fear
up.
is the device of the elites in our society, which essentially is corporate America and the military-industrial complex. They want to imbue you with fear. And that way, you then not only give away your sovereignty on election day, but they keep you in a benign, supine position in between elections. So you can't do much about anything. And so this fear is promulgated, one, by the media, which is totally in the hands of corporate America. And that's the reason why you don't see anything going on that's of value. And that's why WikiLeaks is so significant to make that change. But this fear, when you go to the airport and they make you take your shoes off and all of this, this is to imbue you. My God, if you don't do this, you're going to get on a plane, and if you don't do this, you're going to die on that airplane ride. That's fear that is instituted at the basic level. When you look and you study and you read about that, this is just a waste of time and a waste of money. You take Israel with their airline, El Al. They don't do this kind of crap. What they do is they have qualified people just interview you as you go through, and they can spot this. So when you see that the head of the Homeland Security, Mike Chertoff, when he left, and this is so typical of the whole military establishment, when he left Homeland Security, he went to the board of the company that makes these machines that X-ray you in the altogether. So, okay, that's where he's making money. So that's the whole hoax of it all. And of course, he has a record even before that, when he was in the Justice Department, that makes you very suspicious about what this is all about. But you see, when you watch on television and they're interviewing experts, former generals, they're always the same message. You know, instill fear, the threat is there. We have a greater likelihood here, since, and they claim credit, that since, let's say, in the last decade, we've lost maybe in the United States 3,000 plus, a little bit, of people that were subject to terrorism, okay? We kill about 45,000 to 50,000 on our highways. We get 180,000 people in this country who get brain cancer, a special kind of brain cancer. Now, you have a greater likelihood, far and away, of getting killed in an automobile or getting killed by cancer than even terrorism touching you. Far and away. They're not in the same league. Yet we spend zillions of dollars on this phony fear campaign and don't even address the real problems that we need in trying to cure cancer, which we can. The genius of individual human beings is awesome. And if you give it some freedom, it can really lead us forward. But our structure of governance is out of date. Stop and think. Science has moved ahead so aggressively. Our consciousness has moved ahead. Our understanding of how the brain works has moved ahead. We are stuck in a system of governance that's 225 years old and hasn't even been improved upon, because we can't improve upon it. The limitations, the power is in the hands of the elite to change the Constitution. And that, of course, is Article 5. That's just one of the problems.
And one of the things that I'm wondering, when you're talking about the people being empowered, it means somebody has to give up something.
You dilute their power. They intuitively know that if the people are empowered, their power is diluted. Well, we'll still need elected officials, and I always say we need good people to run for public office. But good people then get co-opted by the system, and they're not so good. They're just selfish people. Mm-hmm. But no, we need good people, but it becomes a win-win. You need both. You need the people to set policy, and you need the elected officials to handle the day-to-day operations of government. And people can go to my website. You can go to my personal one, which is mikegravel.us, mikegravel.us, and they'll take you to the site that is nationalinitiative.us or ni4d.us. And you can vote to empower yourself. But we need 65 million votes to make this the law of the land. And that's the process that I go around the government. And let me give you one little, that says it all, argument, to say, well, how can the people make a law? It's real interesting. In the Constitution of the United States, it's we the people do ordain. Now, when you say do ordain, that means you're the sovereign. You're acting like the king or like God. You do ordain. Mm-hmm. Well, listen to this. If we the people are sovereigns and we do ordain as defined in the preamble of the Constitution, then we don't need to ask what we created, which was the government, permission to change the government. If we needed to get permission from the government to change the government, then it means we did not ordain anything at all. And so if we're the sovereigns and ordainers, we should, through a process that we have developed, which is transparent, which is verifiable. The only thing, it takes the majority. See, under the Constitution, Article 7 said 9 states would, when they ratified the conventions, not the people, conventions of 9 states, it's the law of those 9 states. What I'm saying is, we have the technology today to ask the people, do you want to be empowered? And if a majority of the people who voted in the last presidential election vote in the affirmative in response to that question, it becomes the law of the land. And that's in a national initiative, which is a constitutional amendment and a federal statute that sets up the deliberative process so that people can make laws in every government jurisdiction of the United States.
I could talk to you all day. You'll have to come back. I'm so happy you're here. Thank you. Tell us the website again.
Again, the website's nationalinitiative.us.
Okay.
The NI4D, number 4D.us.
Okay.
And my website, mikegravel.us. And it'll lead you to all of them.
I love it. I love it. Well, this is new information for me. I'm very interested. I know our viewers are also, and let's be part of that 65 million, did you say?
That's what we need to vote for this. It's not an easy task, but then there's no easy way to do it right. There is no easy way in life to do it right.
Good. Well, you're an inspiration.
Thank you. Thank you for
so
having
much.
me,
Thank
Tina.
you. And thank you for joining us today. Come back and we'll see you with our future presentations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.